In this video, I'm going to go through how to do a good screencast, a high quality screencast on Linux. And I'm going to try to cover every aspect of what I'm doing at this particular point in time. I've got a Focusrite Scarlett hub that I've got everything plugged into, and I've got a Rode XLR mic that I'm using, and then the Scarlett plugs in USB into the computer. Now, you can record videos and screencasts off of headsets. I've got a Sennheiser headset that does a really good job. Just, you know, if you're doing video and the screencast or the screen capture on your computer, you probably don't want to use a headset, but if you do, that's perfectly okay. So the sound system itself is not that big of a deal. It's actually a huge deal, but this video and what I'm showing you how to do actually doesn't care about what the audio sounds like. So just, you know, try to get something as high quality as you can. Now, right now you're looking at a screen that's actually running FFmpeg in the background. And right now, in order for me to stop my video cast, I'll just hit the Q button. And obviously I'm not going to do that right now, but I will be doing that when I get through doing the video. Now, the next thing I want to show you is the actual command that I'm using to record the video or record the screen. And I'm actually using FFmpeg, and I've tried all of the Linux screen capture devices or programs that are out there, and FFmpeg by far is the best way to do this. If you want to try using, you know, some of the other programs, and I'm not going to get into all of their names, but if you want to go try them, that's perfectly okay. I have found that FFmpeg is the cleanest and fastest way to do this. The nice thing is once I hit the Q to quit the command that you just saw a minute ago, FFmpeg is done. I've got my MOV file there, and I can go straight into video editing and take care of everything. So right now, just a very quick review. The backslash at the end of these lines that you see here actually are just continuation lines for the command. That's just a Linux command. I'm telling it to do an X11 grab, which is actually what is recording the screen, and I'm doing it at 24 frames per second. And the only reason I picked 24 frames per second so that it matches up to the video itself later on when I start mixing everything together. I've got a size parameter here that actually sets the size to the size of your monitor, so you don't really have to worry about it. It's going to capture the entire desktop with this command. I've got the sound set at 48,000, and I've also, this AC1 is actually telling it to go ahead and record the sound in mono. I don't really, especially using an XLR mic, it's only going to be one channel on the sound, and if you try to record stereo, you're only going to get it in one ear, and then you're going to have to go through in your video editing and merge it into a mono at that point. And I've just found it's quicker to go ahead and get it done while you're capturing. The only other thing here is the name of the video .mov on the end. This is a $ video name because I've actually written a script to go through that asks for the video name and does some other stuff. So just replace the $ video name with whatever you want the name of your video to be. Or you can write a script like I did and do that as well. The next thing I want to show you is how to actually choose the recording device, because by default Pulse Audio is not going to know whether you want to record off your headset or off of some other mic. So I need to actually select the Scarlett for the thing to record off of. So what I have to do is I have to actually go ahead and start the video, start the FFmpeg running, and then once it starts running, go up here and select the Pulse Audio volume control. Now, if you don't see this in your sound system, you can actually get this as a plug-in for GNOME 3. And I am using GNOME 3 and the latest Debian Linux as of the May 31st, 2012. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and open the volume control. And the first thing that you have to do once FFmpeg is running is you can then come in here and select with this little box here which sound device you want to actually use. Now, once you select the sound device that you want to use, you can come over here to the Input Devices control, and then you can change your gain here on this control. Now, I typically try to keep this at 100% and then do all of my settings on the actual, in my case, the Scarlett. So you can kind of, what you want to do is kind of play around with that so that you're not peaking on the sound on your gain. You know, try to keep it as high as you can get it without actually going overboard, and you should end up with a fairly good sound recording. Once you get those couple things set, you're going to record your video, and the entire desktop is going to be getting recorded. Now, obviously, that's not really the optimum thing to show someone, because they end up with a little bitty screen on YouTube, and then you have to go in and figure out, you know, them trying to figure out what your text is saying or what you're doing in the program or whatever it is that you're trying to demo to somebody or to show on the video. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you how to actually do post editing, and what I'm using at the moment, which happens to work really, really well. Earlier versions of Kdenlive didn't work very good at all, but they've done a really good job of getting some of the things like the preview and video playback and that kind of stuff working so that it's actually fairly usable. It's not a Final Cut Pro or anything like that, but it's quick and dirty and does a great job at editing these screencasts and even mixing in actual video footage with the screencast. So what I have done, and if you had noticed on the command that we were looking at a minute ago, well, actually you won't notice here, but I've got my screen resolution set as close to HD footage as I get off the video camera as possible. So when I put these two things together, they mesh up pretty well. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to flip over here to Kdenlive, and I'm going to show you how to actually use Kdenlive to deal with your video footage after you've hit your Q button and saved everything out. So you've got your MOV file, you've copied in your video footage or whatever it is that you want to use with it. And so when you open Kdenlive, by default, you're going to have an empty project. And so what we want to do is we want to actually add some clips to this. So I'm just going to come in here and add, we'll just add this clip just to kind of do something. I'm not going to get into how to mix and do all the other stuff with video and that kind of stuff. I just want to kind of show the basics. So once we add the clip, we're going to click on the clip and drag it down here to our timeline, adjust it over here the way we want it. I'm going to actually come in, and I don't want all this blank space over here, so I'm going to go ahead and hit Shift R after I select where I want to do it. That'll cut my clip there. I'm going to delete that out, and then we're going to drag this guy back. And so looking at the top right hand screen, that is our preview of what we're actually looking at. And as you can see, there's a couple things. This is a very undetailed resolution as far as, you know, what your final output is going to look like. Your final output is going to look really, really crisp. This is just a very low-level view of your video to help you with your cutting and copying and pasting and all the stuff that you're going to be doing with splitting everything up and getting it the way you want it to look. But so don't worry about what it looks like over here in this preview. It's really done this way so that it can keep up with your playback to help you with your editing process. But once we render it out, it will look really, really good and clean. So what we're going to do first is I want to explain just one quick thing. What we're going to do is I want to do some zooming and panning around in this area over here on the right so that the user has a better experience. And you're actually watching, if you're watching this video, you're actually seeing what I did to move everything around to make this thing a little bit easier to work with or to view. So what we want to do first is we're going to come down here to the effect list, and we're going to go to crop and transform, and we want to go to pan and zoom, and we're just going to double click on pan and zoom, and it's going to flip us over here to the effect stack that we're working with. And from here, what we want to do is we want to add some keyframes and then some transitions between those keyframes to let this thing zoom in and move around on the screen to make it a little bit easier to watch for the person watching your video. Now, what we want to do first is I want to explain something that's a little confusing at first. If I were to set, and this is how we set a keyframe, we click this little button here and it adds a keyframe to the video. But we do not want to change the resolution or anything at this particular keyframe. This is our marker keyframe. So the first keyframe that you set is, I want this thing to look exactly like it looks right now at that keyframe. the next thing we want to do is we want to, and if you just click one time on the second number here and just leave your mouse there, I want to add 1 second to that, and I'm going to hit the tab key. You'll notice it's a little hard to see here, but it's moved the arrow over to the right a little bit off of that keyframe that we had originally. We're going to click to add another keyframe. Now I've got 2 keyframes sitting 1 second apart. And now I want to actually zoom in. So I want to tell this thing that I want to go to 200%. I'm going to hit the tab key, and you'll notice over here on the right now it's gotten a lot more detail, a lot bigger. I also want to go ahead on the right, and I want to scroll it down here so that you can see, for example, the FFmpeg running. And we'll just say that that's what I want to start off with. So at that point, I'm going to skip over a little bit, and just to kind of let you know, and I can't play this back in here because it causes a problem with FFmpeg. But what is happening right now is the first keyframe says, here's what I look like right now, and then the second keyframe says, this is what I'm going to look like 1 second later. And the program will actually move across the screen. It'll go from the bigger view and zoom in and pan over to where you want to be all at once within 1 second. So it gives it a nice feel for moving around on the screen and sharing the information that you're trying to display for people. So the next thing I want to do is we're going to jump over a little bit farther in the video. And so if you look up here, you can see the little cursor that's kind of tracking along with me. Typically, I'd be hitting the space bar and playing along and then say, okay, well, here's where I want to move things around again. So again, I'm going to set a keyframe to mark myself. I'm going to click 1 time. I'm going to hit 2 for a second later, hit tab, and then I'm going to hit another keyframe to mark what I want to do at that point. So at this point, I want to go to 150%, tab, and then I'm going to scroll this thing down here where we can see a different part of the screen, for example. So now I have added a second set of keyframes, 1 to mark where I was, and then the second one for the transition for 1 second later. You just continue to do this as you move through the application. You can paste other video clips on top of this so that you can put yourself in a video, for example, mixed in with the video. So that there's a lot of different things that you can do to work with this. But you know, in a nutshell, this is what I'm doing to actually create the videos and pan around the screen and make a really nice screencast on Linux, and using all free tools without having to pay anything for anything. The last step to this is to render the video. We're just going to select render. Now, what I wanted to have was a 720 output video file, 720p. So I set up a favorite. So if I come up here and select favorites, I've got a screencast favorite here that I've already set up with all my frame rate and my size and everything else that I want to actually end up with. So you can do whatever you want on the output, but basically you just come in, select the either a preset favorite or one of the presets that are in there, and then down here at the bottom you just hit the render to file. And what that will do is the name of the file is right here. So by default it's going to stick it inside of the Kdenlive project folder, but it's going to output a video file with whatever the name is. It's an MP4 file that you can then upload to YouTube for sharing with people, or whatever you're trying to do with it. So that's really the entire process that I'm using to produce the video that you just watched.